Hi guys, Swordmaster here. In this tutorial today we're going to look at NPCs and board sprites. So what is an NPC? An NPC is simply an object that is not playable. So it can be anything from a chest to a movable, interactable character, such as a shopkeeper or something like that on your board. Today I'm just going to show you a very basic type of NPC, and we're going to create a board sprite from that NPC. Basically what we're going to do today is we're going to put a pair of torches next to each of these doors, and then we're going to animate those torches using a small program. So I've already set some of this up, but if you copied the Wizard's Tower project, you should already have some of these files set up. So under the animations folder, you're going to find a torch folder, and in there's going to be a torch animation. So I'm just going to quickly show you what that torch animation looks like. So I'm going to open it up here in the editor, and this animation is built up a strip of 3 torches in it. So I'm just going to recreate it basically. So in the graphics, you need to find something called torch strip. And you go open and set that, and it's 32 by 32, and that will then give us, hit enter, that will then give us a torch like animation. And I've set the FPS down here, and that's set to 4. That didn't work. I forgot to select. You remember, you have to actually select the sprites that you want to use from the sprite sheet. So I forgot to do that there. So, and then you play that, and we got this very simple kind of torch that we can use on our boards. So that's the first step of creating an NPC. Like a character, it needs animations. So I'll just show you now. So if you want to create a new NPC, you go File, New NPC. And NPCs are very simple, and they share some common features with characters. But at the minute they're very basic. They have a profile picture that you can set. So I'm going to set that to anything. I'm just going to set it to this picture here. And it's 100 by 100 pixels. It's very basic. We'll be using it in future tutorials when we get to dialogue, but for now it doesn't really do anything for us. You'll also see a name and description, and then you'll also notice that they also have a animations section just like the characters. So they share a lot of common things. Also as well, they have the same vector setup as characters in the editor. So there's a few editors, such as the character, NPC, and then there's another type called enemies, and they all have a common set of features. And I've tried to make the editor as consistent as possible when it comes to configuring similar things, such as animations. So should be very familiar. So I've already got a torch animation or a torch NPC created. So I'm going to just open that, and I'll show you what it looks like. So it simply has the north, south, east, and west animations set to its torch animation. So, and I've also decreased the size of the vectors to be very, very small. You could actually completely disable these. So when you're creating this torch, you need to set the north, south, east and west animation just to that same torch animation. So you can repeat and use the same animation on an NPC multiple times. And then just disable the vector and activation vector, because we don't need those at all. And then save that as torch.npc. And now that's kind of all that there is to configure on NPCs at the minute in the editor. So what can you do with an NPC? Well, you can place an NPC on a board as something called a board sprite. what is it? I explained at the very start, but I'll repeat it. A board sprite is any kind of object that isn't a playable character other than enemy types that the player can or can't interact with. So it could be something like a chest that the player can open, and you can animate that chest, or it could be an NPC that you can, a character that you can talk to, or it could be, in our case, we're just going to create a very simple torch-like NPC. So I'm going to turn on snap to grid for this. So open view, I'm going to snap to grid and I'm snapping the grid on. And that will mean that I can place the torches right next to the doors. So how do you place a board sprite? At the very top toolbar, you'll notice this kind of person here. And if you hover over that for long enough, it will say set board sprite. And this is the tool that you use to create board sprites. Placing a board sprite is very simple. When you left click, so you just left click, you'll get this kind of template. Nothing is set on this board sprite at the minute, so you get this kind of dummy board sprite. And you can select it with the right click. And you can delete it by either pressing the delete key, or again, you can use the middle mouse key. Okay, so I'm going to place 4 of them down here. So this is where we want our torches to appear. Now it's also important to note that NPCs are also dependent on layers. So what I've done here is I have put them on the base layer, but I could just as easily put them on the upper layer. But if your character is on the base layer and your chest or the character that you want to talk to is on a different layer, you generally won't be able to interact with that NPC. So you'll need to ensure that they're on the same layer. But we'll get to that in a future tutorial. For now, we're just going to focus on creating these simple torches. So I've placed 4 torches. I'm now going to select one of them. And you'll see straight away when I select that, down here, the properties tab changes. And there's a few things you can set. But the most important one is the sprite file. So we created an NPC type, and that is a type of sprite file. So I'm going to find the torch that we created, and I'm going to just set that to that, and straight away you can see that template becomes our torch. Now there's a few other properties here. I'm just going to quickly talk about them. There's an ID property. This just identifies this particular torch on the board. We don't need it right now. You can also adjust the X and Y manually, so I can actually adjust this. Even though I've got snap to grid on, I can actually adjust that a little bit. And you can also write in it, type in it, and you can adjust the Y too. So you can do that, do all those kind of things. And also you can adjust the layer from here too. So if you put it on the wrong layer and you just want to move it up one layer, you can simply just do that, and that moves it up on one layer. And you'll see now if I hide the base layer, that torch is still up, appears in the upper layer. And if I hide the upper layer, that torch doesn't appear. So that's just to show you that you can actually change the layers after placing an object. After placing a sprite, a board sprite, I mean. Event, we can skip over for that. For now, we don't need to know anything about it. But you need to set one thing down here at the very bottom. There's a section called thread. Now, we're going to set that to a program called idle. So if you've copied the Wizard's Tower project, you should find this file called idle.js. Okay, and set that there. And now repeat that for each of these torches. So set the sprite file, set the idle. Now I'm not going to set it on all of these. I'll just show you the difference between setting the idle thread to idle, the idle.js, and not setting it. So I'll leave these two on here. These two on the left without that thread. Basically, when we set this thread to this program here, it's going to animate the torch, and these ones do not have it set, and they will not be animated. So I'll just show you the difference now. I'm going to click play, and straight away you can see these torches are nicely sitting here and they're animating. With these torches that I didn't set that program, that thread to, and not animated. So in the Wizards Tower project, there is a program called idle.js. I'm not gonna get into it right now, but all you need to know is that it animates the NPC that is the board sprite that is attached to. It will animate its south-facing animation. So if I set the thread here to the idle threads, you'll see that those torches will now become animated. I think now they're all animated, they're all kind of moving in sequence. So what else can you do with board sprites? You can drag them around. So if you hold the right click and then pull on the animation, on the sprite, you can drag it around the board and reposition it like that too. That is all on basic board sprites that I'm going to cover in this video.